Thanks for joining the call today. And I think I was just talking about what this podcast is about. So, this is a Be Invincible podcast. And the whole point of Be Invincible podcast is the aim of this podcast is to give value to others and at least have this approach of redesigning their process of how they deal with challenges and struggles with a framework which you and other industry experts have built in their experiences, and they can at least get some value out of this podcast when we discuss together. And uh, and that is the whole point of Be Invincible podcast. So we're not making them invincible, but at least giving them an opportunity to build that invincible mindset, so that whenever they hit that ceiling, they ask themselves that, okay, what can I do to make sure that I go beyond this, right? So that's the whole point. So thank you today for joining this podcast, and I would like you to talk about yourself and introduce yourself to all audience who are going to watch this later and maybe joining live. So please introduce yourself. Thank you.
So my name is Yarona Boster, and I'm the president, founder, CEO of Footprints Coaching. My experience is in 17 years plus at this point and ongoing of early childhood, human development, psychology, and coaching. I have spent many, many years working with parents, working with individuals who struggle with probably the hardest role most people will ever take on in their lives, which is being a parent.
Right.
And a lot of the mindsets and the methodologies and the strategies I use are based on the evidence-based strategies that we use all the time, especially in the early childhood field and human development field. But I also linked a lot of what I with and a lot of my personal loss. I've had an excess of loss, and as a result, I started, which is that while do physically, we're not taught how to parent, and we're not practice parenting before we parents. We're not given the skills and the knowledge that we need so that when our children are doing things, all we see are the behaviors without understanding what's going on behind the So my ultimate, every single human that so hopefully that makes sense. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, I can hear you. All right. Yes.
Okay,
Cool. So, since when you have started
great. So
this?
that is essentially what I
Mama, mera phone.
sure.
My phone is just ringing. So, yeah. So, my question to you, Yaruna, was since when you are into this industry, like, what made you think that this is the right thing to do in your life in helping others, like getting into coaching? To be very honest, right? That's a straight question.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, a lot of what we do in the public health sphere is somewhat restrictive based on the policies and the things that are created. And of course, we need policies in a society, in any given society, there are structures and we have to have policies, we have to have rules and regulations. But one of the most difficult things about that is there's a lot of black and white there, and human beings are uniquely positioned to be the most unique creatures you'll ever find. And as a result, it makes it really hard to strategize with people when you're dealing with a lot of the black and white, because humans don't operate in the black and white, they really operate in the gray.
Right.
So I started to realize, well, you know what, if I'm going to make the kind of impact I want to make, I have to leave the field where I'm dealing constantly with bumping up against the public policies and understand the privatization that comes with uniquely strategizing what we need as parents, as individual human beings. Because probably one of my favorite statistics ever is that human beings are as unique as 1 in 400 trillion people.
Wow.
So with that uniqueness, we can't possibly have, oh, just use this, just do this.
Right.
We have to uniquely identify, we have to gain perspective awareness and objectivity, and we need people in our lives to help us do that. So one of the things that's wonderful about coaching is the objective is to look forward. The objective is to look in the now and forward. Where are you now? Where do you want to be moving forward?
Mhm.
And to work really hard on that. Now, unlike therapy, therapy unpacks a lot of where you came from. And it's not to say that coaching doesn't utilize some of that to understand the person.
Mhm.
We have to be able to understand the person, but therapy really focuses on the crises aspect of mental health crises, traumatic crises, where you're actively suffering with something and you're incapable of moving forward and living your daily life. Whereas coaching methodologies are really all about your present and forward momentum.
Mhm.
And it's a different methodology in that respect. Granted, I personally think that if people are suffering from something really difficult that's making it hard to live a regular life,
Mhm.
then they need to have both therapy and coaching.
Okay.
But the thing I love about coaching is that it's not about suffering with what you've gone through. It's about understanding that you can't control what happened to you, but you get to decide how you want to move forward.
Right. That's great. I think, yeah, every coach has this agenda of giving value to others, right? That's
Yeah.
something which always a coach looks out for. So my next question, Yorna, to you is, what are the common challenges a parent goes through? And I would mostly, I think, talk about, I mean, generic problems or challenges, because I know every parent goes through it. So, what is, according to you, common challenges people go through when they are into a parenting zone, right?
hmm I would say right now, in the current atmosphere of what we are living,
Mhm.
we have two things. We have a lot of black and white thinking, which is the thought process of it either has to be this way or it has to be that way for my child.
Mhm.
Or for the child, they're like, no, no, this, no, this. And so there's a lot of black and white thinking that goes on. It's got to be this or it's got to be that. There's no in between. And the other issue that I think is really excessively difficult right now is dealing with technology and how much of your parenting has the invasive aspect of technology. And
Mhm.
how are we using technology in a helpful way rather than a harmful way? I think those are two really big things. And I can go into them. Would you like me to go into more of what I mean by that?
I think more towards the technology point of view, because I
Sure.
think I've seen kids just, just attached to digital devices.
Yes.
I
Yes.
think most of my concern, because I'm a parent too, most of my concern is how should I make sure that screen time is less, the kid
Mhm.
more active, spending more time in creative things rather than just sticking to that device and just not blinking their eyes as well. What would be
Right.
your recommendation to everyone who is going through these challenges, and what is the right approach for us to help our kids to move away from that more screen time? I think screen time is still okay, but what is your perspective?
Well, and it's interesting that you say that screen time is okay, because this is where I talk about the black and white thinking of screens. Some people think, no, we have to have no screens in our house. And other people are like, "Ah, I give up, we'll just have it all over the place." And
Hmm.
so the black and white thinking is like either it's all or it's nothing.
Yeah.
And with this, you can use it, but you have to be able to identify when you're using it as a tool where it's effective, helpful, relatable, an opportunity, using it in progress and using it for maintaining certain things versus when you're using it as an excuse or a crutch versus using it as an addiction or using it as a weapon. So I'm going to break down what that looks like.
Yeah. Yeah.
When we're using technology in the best way possible, we're using it as a tool. So some of the ways we do that is, let's say and I'm not talking about the educational tools, although I do think that there are much better programs specifically on technology that you could choose over other things. Like rather than doing YouTube, you could have them watching PBS Kids, which is a really great program in the States, at least. But there are some ones that are really designed to both be entertaining and educational. And so you can stick towards those if you're interested in having technology in your family. So that's one thing. But the other thing is technology as a tool can be used as a social engagement. So for instance, when you get home from school and work and everybody's exhausted and you all want to just relax, watching a show together as a family can be a socially engaging tool.
True.
It can be an opportunity to have conversations with your kids rather than everybody zoning into the TV. You can say, "Oh, look what's going on." And always it depends on the age of the child as to how that conversation is going to flow. So
Mhm.
if they're little, if you've got TV on and they're 3, 4 years old, and you're saying, "Oh, what colors do you see? What are they doing?" Getting them to just answer some of the basic stuff like, what do you think of that? And just like that, having deeper conversations as they get older, like, what do you think of that storyline? What are your thoughts on this? And not asking why questions, because why questions can be a bit judgmental depending on the why question, but a lot of times it's why. Like, why do you like this show so much? That can sound judgmental as opposed to saying, like, what about this show do you like so much?
Okay.
Then they can be more specific about what is it, or how does this show make you laugh and the other show makes you get a little bit angry. What are the differences there? So there's so many ways to use it as a constructive social engagement tool. That's wonderful. Now, the other thing about a tool is that sometimes we do need it to disconnect from everything and everyone.
Right.
And that's fine, but we have to create limitations. And we honestly, with a tool, we have to create limitations always. So even if it's a social engaging tool, we have to create a limitation on that. If it's a disconnection tool, we have to create limitations. Look, as a parent, if you're working all day long, and you're exhausted at the end of your day, coming home with your kids and immediately being engaged with them is hard.
Right.
So saying, hey, everybody, let's take 15, 20 minutes and everybody do their own thing. Relax. I need to go and lay down for 15, 20 minutes or go and sit in my room quietly and read a book to disconnect. Maybe take a bubble bath, maybe, go into the kitchen and have a nice snack or something like that, and you can watch TV. We'll all do our own thing because humans do need a little bit of that disconnection. And then we're all re-energized, we can come back together as a family. That's fine. I think it's important to set limitations on that.
Right.
And the limitations need to be set based on how you've evaluated where that line is drawn. What I mean by this, very importantly, is a lot of parents will ask me, well, how much is too much? It depends on the response of everybody. If you get drawn into a book and you start reading it and reading it and reading it, and you're like, nope, I'm not going to leave the book. And you're there for an hour and you're reading the book and you don't want to reconnect with anything else in your life, that's too much. Same thing for TV. Same thing for food. Same thing for anything. Everything can be seen as how am I using this as a tool? How am I using this as an excuse or a crutch? How am I using it as an addiction or a weapon? So if you're doing any of those things to disconnect from your family, you need to be reconnecting with your family at a point at which you're like, okay, oh, I feel a little better now. The stress is a little less heavy. I feel a little bit like I've shaken off the stresses of the workday. Now I can reconnect with my family. So knowing how much time you need for that is important. And at the point at which you say, okay, now I can reconnect. If you've gone too far, then whoops, we went too far. That was too much. Because some people might need 20 minutes. Some people might need 10, some people might need 30. But if you're like at an hour's point, 2 hours point, 3 hours point, well, then now you're using the other thing as an excuse to disengage, to stay disengaged. Not good. So let's talk now about technology again, where we go into this. So like I said, these are the ways in which technology can be really helpful when it comes to families, right? Of course, technology can also be a wonderful tool to learn more about something. Technology can be a wonderful tool to engage. Like if you have family all across the world, hey, look what we're doing right now. We're having a conversation across the world, right? So that's a beautiful part of technology. There are a lot of incredible parts to technology that provide us the opportunity to use it as a tool. But we have to create the awareness of when we're going overboard. So when we're going overboard, we start to use it as an excuse. Well, you know what? Just this time, I'll take an hour or two to myself, and just this time. And then the just this time starts to get a little bit more and a little bit more. Oh, you know what? He did that because he was doing the tech too long. Okay, so my kid has an excuse for getting really angry at me because he was engaged in that too long, and now he was, and I bothered him. Now we're using it into excuse territory. And crutch territory is when you're leaning on it too hard. So when you're leaning on it too hard, let's say you're taking a drive somewhere with your family, and every single time you take a drive anywhere, you immediately grab the devices. And you're like, here, everybody, have your devices because we have to be disconnected in the car because clearly you need to have something to connect with that is not us.
Right.
No. Listen, I grew up at a time when we didn't have any of that stuff. Our car rides were all about playing I Spy games, looking at the trees, observing things outside of the car, playing games in the car. We used to play this wonderful family game called Ghost, and it was a great opportunity to figure out, like, it was a word game. It was a wonderful verbal word game. There are so many. There are so many. We play a game called What's in That Truck, where we're driving and we go, what do you think they're carrying in that truck? And my son will be like, oh, I think they're carrying teddy bears and couches. And I'm like, oh my goodness, what are they doing on those with those teddy bears and couches? And it's such a wonderful imagination tool. So there's so many ways to engage creativity and imagination that are much healthier than using those crutches of a device. Oh, here, everybody, let's just everybody watch their iPads and their tablets and their phones, and that's fine because we have a 30-minute drive somewhere, or we have an hour drive somewhere. We don't need that. We can make the time go with connection. So those are like times when it can be used as an excuse or a crutch, where we're leaning on it too heavily, or we're using it to excuse our poor behaviors.
Right.
Then we fall into addiction territory. And when we fall into addiction territory, and I'm going to say this especially with kids, here's the problem with too much tech where it falls into addiction. Everything you do is centered around that thing, and the other things fall away. No, I don't want to go with grandma to the farm. Listen, this just happened to me this morning. So I'm giving you guys a real life example. I don't want to go with grandma to the farm. I just want to watch TV all day. This is when I know my son has been engaged in too much TV.
Right.
Because now he's so addicted to it that he can't see the possibility of enjoying his time with his grandmother. To go to a farm, when I know he loves petting zoos and he loves farms and he loves doing all that stuff. So now I see, oops, he's slipping into a place where he's had too much exposure to it recently. And now he feels like he needs that thing in order to function, in order to enjoy his day, in order to function optimally in his life. And that's when those other things fall away. When my kid wakes up in the morning, not my kid, but this is something I heard from a parent the other day. Every day when my child wakes up in the morning, she has to go downstairs and watch her TV. And if she doesn't, she starts freaking out, having a meltdown, and that's that. When those meltdowns are coming, that is a signal that you've had too much exposure and it's falling into addiction territory. So we need detox time. We need time away from that thing. And let me tell you something about detox time with tech. It's hard with kids at first. They have no impulse control. They're going to rage because they have no ability to contain their anger and their frustration. They don't have the critical thinking skills to re-engage, like, is this good for me or is this bad, to be able to evaluate it for themselves. There's so many problems. And the reason why is because they've been receiving so much dopamine hits to the brain that they're like, I'll just keep going with this thing. Here's the problem for tech when it comes to an addiction. It hits the same receptors in the brain as drugs and alcohol.
Okay.
So if you're not planning on drugging your child, if you're not planning on pouring liquor down their throat, you cannot give them unfettered access to a device, especially our little ones. Under the age of 5, even under the age of 7, they are, all their learning in the brain, all that's happening in the brain, there's so much emotionality in the brain and very little critical thinking. And so it's hard for them to imagine or think through the repercussions or the consequences of their exposure to that thing. So then it's up to us to help them understand what that exposure actually is doing in their brain. And there are ways to do that when they're little. But the problem is you can't go too high in explaining it because they won't understand. And you have to maintain your calm in the face of their rage. This is really hard for most parents. They're going to go, you can't yell at me like that. You can't be so angry when I tell you to turn off the TV. Stop screaming. Stop throwing things. Here's the thing. If somebody is a drug addict and you've just removed their drug, do you anticipate that they're going to respond happily and well? Then you cannot anticipate that's going to be the case for your children. You can't. You have to anticipate they are going to be angry. And your mindset has to be, maintain my mental supremacy, maintain my mental supremacy, maintain my ability to critically understand why and how my child is reacting the way they are. They are reacting in this angry way because I have just removed their drug of choice.
Right.
I need to stay calm. I need to breathe. I need to maintain this. And if I can't, I need to walk away and I need to say, I need a moment. I'm going to leave and I'm taking the remotes with me. I'm taking the controllers with me. They will rage and they will go crazy when they're addicted to it. And it can be pretty awful. But understand that their violent response is the response of an addict to to the thing that you have just withdrawn from them. We have to acknowledge that that is the reason for that response and maintain our calm. And it's not easy because all we want to do is be able to push a button on them and stop them from yelling. We want to push a button and stop them from crying. We want to push a button and stop them from throwing things. That is not the way humans operate. We cannot just push the power button and turn it off. So we need to understand that what's happening to our child in their brain is that their dopamine hits have gotten so high that they are cycling through this high. Mm-hmm. And you've just removed the thing they were getting high from. This is where the problems comes from when adults don't understand that. Now, I don't know if you've ever seen these videos, but I have seen them repeatedly. And I think it's the height of awful parenting. You have a kid who there was, I guess, I don't watch TikTok, but I see some of the trends that happen all the time. I do get exposure to the trends and I get a lot of knowledge from the parents as well. And I saw this, this thing that was trending where a kid would, maybe like your 10-year-old or your 9-year-old or even, your teenager, would be playing video, would be gaming, and the parents would come in and they would yank the power cord and they would turn the game off. And the kids would start screaming and freaking out, and the parents would be recording them and laughing. It's cruel.
It is.
That would be like laughing at somebody who just got into a car wreck, because that's how they're emotionally feeling. They are feeling like you just shot their dog. You just hurt them in a horrible, it would be like you just punched them in the gut and now you're laughing at them and recording it. So I'm going to say one thing is that that is the worst emotional response, because now you're putting them into isolation because you're disconnecting them from the empathy they need as as a parent. So when I say maintain your calm when your kid is raging, I don't mean immediately walk away. I mean just stand calmly in the face of their rage, because your calm has and I don't mean stone faced. I mean like acknowledging, I see you're angry. I see you're angry, because what they do need in that moment is your empathy.
Right.
What they need is you to acknowledge that the rage that they're feeling is valid, because their feelings and thoughts are always true. They're always valid. Behaviors are unacceptable at times. However, when they're raging from an addiction withdrawal, their behaviors are going to be pretty awful. They could throw something, they could break something, and we cannot in that moment turn and go, you shouldn't have done that. We do have to talk about it later when they're calm. But when they're in an upset state, that is never, ever the time to make them feel bad for the behavior they just did, to try to scream at them for the poor behavior. Never, because that is the moment when they are so emotionally dysregulated that you're not going to be tapping into any critical thinking that they have. So you have to do it later when they're calm. And you do have to address it. You cannot accept that that behavior is happening. You do have to address it. So let's go back to one more thing, which is when I talked about saying using technology as a weapon. We can easily weaponize technology. And I'm not just talking about, nuclear bombs and things like that. Okay. I'm talking about weaponizing technology by cyberbullying, trolling people, saying cruel things to one another online, because we're not acknowledging the human at the other side. Another way we can weaponize technology is when one child has a lesser device and another child has a greater device, and they're like, and they're using it as a way to make someone else feel poor or bad about themselves and belittle them. There are so many ways to weaponize technology these days that it's quite common to do it without even realizing it. Right. We can weaponize it by saying, my kid needs the technology and that's it, and this is what they have to have in your school, and that's it, and you have to accept that. That's actually weaponizing technology, because then it's forcing the school to bend to parents who don't understand the ramifications of that technology being brought into school. We have right now, my son is in kindergarten and they have Chromebooks, and I am quite upset about that. I don't think they need to be having Chromebooks. This is not the age where they need that stuff. The technology is not advancing their education, because they need social emotional development in the early years 10,000 times more than they need technology.
Right.
They need to learn, one of the things that we have studies that show that children are losing their capability for fine motor function. That's, handwriting, manipulating things with their fine motor development, that their hands, right? Their hands. But on top of that, their sensory development is problematic, because when technology offers a particular sensory development, it's offering it in a way that's either oversensitizing them or undersensitizing them. So occupational therapists work on both the proprioceptive, which is the sensory component, and the fine motor development. And one of the things that we see these days is kids are either too sensitive or dissensitive to, or desensitized to, certain sensory stimuli. So visual stimuli, sound stimuli, taste stimuli, touch stimuli, and all of those things. So one of the things that we need to do is decrease the technology in their world, means that they're going to re-engage with the natural environmental sensories.
Oh.
And then they're going to be able to figure out how to regulate within those sensories. We have a lot of kids who are diagnosed on the spectrum. Now, I don't have enough proof of this yet. However, have been a lot of studies that I believe there's definitely a link to the need for technology and the symptomatics of autism spectrum disorder and ADHD, meaning that a lot of people can present symptomatically with those two diagnoses because they've had an excess of exposure to technology.
Was it?
Now, I'm not going to say that is 100% true, but I do believe that this is something we need to study a lot more. Because one of the things we're constantly saying is we don't know exactly where autism comes from. We don't know exactly where ADHD comes from. We're just capable of diagnosing it more. It's a chicken and egg situation. We don't exactly know what came first. Is it that we're more aware of these diagnoses, or that they are indeed rising? And I think that there's a lot that could be said about the oversensory stimuli that we get from technology in our environment that is a contributing factor to these diagnoses. So there's a lot of ways that technology has been weaponized. And again, I go back to, as a parent, the best thing we can do is ask ourselves, am I using this as a tool to promote my child's socialization with me, to help us have a little moment of respite and disengagement from the world, just a little, so that I can then re-engage with my life and my people and my family? Am I using this as a tool for their educational development? Am I using this as a tool for their cognition development? And so on, right? But then we can ask ourselves, am I using this now as a bit of an excuse to get out of connecting with my family? Am I using this as a crutch to lean on to say, oh, I must have this every single time we go on a car ride, or every single time we go out to eat as a family? Oh, we're not going to be able to get through a meal together without everybody having their face in a device. That's not true. But again, I go back to, it's always difficult initially when you first start that detox mode, when you first start that disconnection mode, it always feels a bit uncomfortable. So have other things available. When we go out to eat, we bring a bag of toys. And so when we're out to eat together as a family, we're playing with the toys. And sometimes we don't even take out the toys. Sometimes we're just having a lovely conversation. But at least we have something to start the engagement with. And
Right.
toys, again, toys are different than technology, because technology gives you the excuse to disconnect from the people around you and the environment around you. Whereas toys are about reciprocal play, right? We have to do that together.
Right.
And that requires us, even when we're drawing, my family, we like to do a lot of drawing and stuff like that. So we'll do a lot of arts and crafts together, but we'll talk about it while we're doing it. We'll have moments of quiet, total quiet, where everybody's concentrating on their thing, but we'll quickly be able to re-engage and have the discussion about, oh, what are you drawing over there? Oh, what's it about? Are you drawing a whole story? Are you drawing a figure, My husband likes to draw Superman and Spider-Man and all of the comics and stuff. So it's really great to have those things. It doesn't mean you have to be constantly talking to one another, but when you're better engaged in your environment, your environmental awareness, it also starts to re-engage your child in their critical thinking skills.
Yeah, true.
Very important. So hopefully that wasn't too much overload, but
I think this I am thinking about one more question leading to this technology, right? So I've seen many of my known persons, right? They they give phone to the kid as soon as they sit on the dining chair, right? And I asked them, why do you do that? So their response is the kids eat faster and eat a lot or good when they are in front of the phone or a device, right? So I want to ask you this question. How true is this? Like, is this a good idea to just, as soon as the kid is on the dining chair, give them a device and they will not even see what they're eating at, right?
yeah,
What is your advice on that?
it disconnects them from what nutrition is all about. It disconnects them from their awareness of how to nutriate their bodies, how to actually engage in the food. It also disconnects them from the sensory engagement of experiencing food. It is so bad on so many reasons, for so many reasons. So the problem is, though, again, this is a circumstance where we cannot go cold turkey because you'll have a complete meltdown. But what we can do is start to minimize that and say, okay, before you get the phone, I'm going to have this toy and we're going to talk about this toy while you're eating. Okay. And depending on how old they are, look, if they're a toddler, oh my goodness, there's so many ways to engage a baby that you do not need a device in front of them. You don't. You can make the food fun. Make the food fun, and you will re-engage your child in their environmental awareness of what they're doing in that moment. So one of the things with food that a lot of parents get freaked out about is, I don't want my child playing with their food. But playing with their food gives them a better awareness of what foods they like, gives them a better awareness of how to become aware of when their body is full and no longer hungry. Because here's the thing, if you're disconnected from the food because you're connected to a device, what's happening is you're not paying attention to your body signaling to you when you're full,
True.
signaling to you when you're no longer hungry. So you'll just keep going and going and going and finish what's on the plate. The other problem with this is autonomy. Your child, you may think you're giving your child the right amount of food, but because every human is as unique as 1 in 400 trillion, some people require less food and
Right.
some require more food. And then when your child goes through a growth spurt, they may require more food. And then some days, think about us as adults. Some days we're voraciously hungry and
Right.
we might eat a whole huge sandwich. And another day we might eat half that sandwich and say, I don't need any more. But the problem is when we're disconnected from the food, we're disconnected from our awareness of what that food is giving us or the potential harm that food is giving to us. So one of the things that I know parents struggle the hardest with is making the food fun. So
Yeah.
here's what I say. Get out all different kinds of textures of food, all different kinds,
Mhm.
and allow your kids the opportunity to just start to play with their food. I mean, literally, like make faces with it, like create with it, get them engaged in the food in a way that has nothing to do with their eating habits and has everything to do with their awareness of what that is. And then we start to have planned times where when you're saying, I'm just going to give them the device, so they're going to eat the food, what we do is say, okay, we're not doing the device first. Okay, you're going to have a cutoff on this device. You're not going to have it first. First, you're going to look at your food and name the different colors of the food. And let's talk about where these foods come from. There are so many things to do with food. Now, if your child is freaking out, once again, why is your child freaking out? Because you're disconnecting them from something that they've become addicted to. So in that addictive moment, you have to maintain your calm and you cannot tell them to stop feeling how they're feeling. Let them cry. Give them the time they need to cry through it and say, we're not having the device. I am here for you. I see you're upset. I see you're angry. And I totally understand that. And just sit and wait for the calm because they won't cry forever if you stay calm. Now they will keep crying if you're like, it's okay, it's okay, it's okay, because they're getting attention from you for their crying. So they'll keep crying. You're not going to tell them it's okay. You're going to say to them, I see you're upset. I understand you're sad. I understand you're mad at me. I know. I could see that. And then stay quiet and let the tears start to reduce naturally. They will. They will reduce naturally. It will be really uncomfortable for you as the parent, but they will eventually reduce. And then now that you know they're not getting the device, you don't have to keep repeating, you're not getting it, you're not getting it, you're not getting it. I'm going to tell you really importantly, if you keep repeating that they're not getting it, they will think they have a moment to convince you they will be.
Oh, is it?
So you simply say it once and and it's not there, it's away, it's far, far away.
Right.
And then you said, you're not getting it. And you hold to that, not by repeating it, but just by simply saying, I can see you're upset. And this works for so many things, not just for the technology, but toys too. Let's say you're out shopping, food shopping and stuff. But when you stick with it with calm and you don't keep arguing about it, see, if you're engaged in an argument, somebody else thinks they can keep convincing you. Your child thinks they can keep convincing you because you're still arguing. You don't need to argue. You just simply say, It's not going to happen. But I see that you're upset. And they need the empathy because they need that connection. They need to see that you have acknowledged and understand the way they are feeling.
And this
It
is
doesn't mean they, yeah. Yes, go ahead.
and this is applicable for kids who are already habitual of watching the device as soon as they
Yeah,
get on the chair. Is this applicable on those kids as well?
absolutely. But again, this is a detox situation. So initially, it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard. And we can do this incrementally. So one of the ways you can do it incrementally is to say, okay, I will give you the device. However, for the first 10 minutes, we're just going to chat about your food. What do you love about this food? What's different about the food? Can you tell me what's different about each of them to compare to each other? What colors are they? Even like your 7-year-old, your 8-year-old, your 9-year-old, your 10-year-old, they still need those acknowledgments to just grow awareness of food. You can also play a game and you can say, listen, I got my plate of food here. You got your plate of food here. Let's see how many peas I can eat in 10 seconds. How many peas can you eat in 10 seconds? Okay, it's like, okay, how much of that naan can you eat in 10 seconds? So that, and just how much can I eat? Not a competition between the two of you, but a competition between you and the food.
Right.
And the reason for that is because some children do not do well with competition between each other. So you have to learn your child. If they do well with competition between one another, great. Okay, how many can I eat before you? And vice versa. But oftentimes better, it's between you and the food. And so timers of like, okay, we're going to put a 1-minute timer on and see how many bites of food we can take in 1 minute. Now, granted, we don't want them to choke. So depending on how old your child is,
True.
or how slow can I eat? Oh, and it's like there's so many ways to make it fun and playful. So you can do that for like the first 10 minutes and set a timer. Again, and what's really great about that is if they have a timer, like if they have a watch or if they have a timer that they can set, tell them to set it. One of the greatest things, children want control. They want control over their own life and their own choices. So one of the ways you can give them control is to say, all right, you set the timer. When they set the timer, they know it's 10 minutes. They're going to set the timer for 10 minutes, but they feel like now they've taken a bit of the control over it.
Right.
Okay, now you can have your device for the rest of the meal. And you can do that for like, say, a few days or a week, depending on how easier it gets. And then you could say, okay, now we're going to eat for 15 minutes without the device. Now we're going to eat for 20 minutes without the device. And then remind them, so what did you not did you enjoy that? Not a question of a yes or no, but what did you enjoy most about eating now? And start to get them engaged in what are they enjoying about having that meal? Because the other component to that meal is the connection with you. They
Right.
love that. They need that. Like, oh, I love that you were so silly and that you tried to balance a pea on your nose, Like there's so many ways to make food fun and enjoyable and a component of your connection with your children.
True. True.
And it's not about their nutritious value until you get to the stage where you can then start talking about the nutritious value. For
Right.
the first initial stages of disconnecting, you just need to make it fun and engaging.
But I think during this time frame, not even about the food, there are many situations where we lose our patience, right?
Yes.
Because we are also human beings, right? But how do we gentle parent at the
Yeah.
word of losing our patience, right? That's I've seen so many people myself, right?
Yeah.
I lose my patience because I am a human being, but I want to learn how to be a gentle parent while I'm on the verge of losing patience, right? So, what is your recommendation on that?
Giving yourself the kindness and the tools and the strategies you need, because losing your patience is your patience.
Hmm.
Remember, it's not losing their patience, it's losing your patience in the face of what they're doing. The behavior they're exhibiting is having a direct impact on your emotional stance.
Right.
You have to learn how to control your emotional place. So there's a couple of things that you can do. I have a theory I call, well, it's actually a methodology. I call this the emotional stopgap mechanism. It's like a valve. I tell people, and this is for people who are very much like visualization learners. I say, okay, imagine there's like a little turn valve in your brain, and it's the right between your critical thinking and your emotional engagement. You need to be able to first allow the flow of emotions to come through and acknowledge them. Say, oh yeah, I'm losing my patience. Okay. Oh, I'm so frustrated. Oh, I'm so angry. This is taking so much time. Give yourself the opportunity to actually acknowledge all of those feelings, not just feeling the feeling, but actually talk to yourself about it. I'm feeling all of these things. I'm feeling all these things. Oh my God, I feel like I'm going to cry. Okay, I'm so frustrated that tears are near. All of those things, you need to be able to acknowledge them, because I'm not saying turn off your emotions. I'm saying give your emotions space in your head to be acknowledged. You cannot just tamp them down. You have to acknowledge them. And then you imagine yourself okay, I've noticed all of these feelings that I'm feeling, right? All right, now I'm going to turn the volume down on them. I'm going to turn that valve. I'm going to slow the flow of those feelings. And then you're going to say, what do I need to do to find my calm?
Right.
What do I need to do to find my patience? What do I need to do to find my defrustration, to reduce how I'm feeling right now? Okay, I need to take a deep breath. And what's really interesting is that while you're doing this, your child is aware and noticing you're doing this. They are observing you doing this. And it starts to help them as well. So the best parent you can be starts with the best person you can be. You want to be the best person for yourself in
Yes.
reducing those feelings first before you can engage in being a parent.
True.
So you got to be able to acknowledge how you're feeling and then identify what you need to take those calming steps. Is it a breath? Is it you know what? I need a moment outside of this room, because you need to physically disengage. You have to say that out loud, though. You
Yeah.
know what? I am losing my patience right now. I need to go find it. So give me 2 minutes. I'm going to set a timer and I'll be right back. Your kid is safe. They're there. They're okay. Okay. But now, if you're in a restaurant and you can't physically walk away, then you have to find the room in your head.
Right.
And that may mean closing your eyes for a moment and saying, I need a moment. I need to find my calm. Where is my calm? Oh, you're hiding in the corner. You're afraid of me. I know, but I need your calm. I need calm to come back into the room.
True.
And doing those things gives you the ability to re-engage the calm you.
Right.
I'm going to tell you, I'm going to be honest. I lose my patience too.
Yeah.
There is not a single human being. I don't care how long I've been doing this. There's not a single human being on this earth. If you ever find a parenting expert who says, I always maintain my calm, go, no, 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 no. You're not the person I need. I need somebody who gets how I'm feeling.
Yeah.
So I'm going to tell you, I get that. I have lost my patience before. My patience has run and hid in the other room and jumped in the car and ran and drove down somewhere else, drove to the store.
Right.
So I'm like, okay, where are you? A lot of times also humor can re-engage you, because it changes the wiring in your brain to reconnect with something funny. So like if you have a vivid imagination, I have a very vivid imagination. If you have a vivid enough imagination, I have named my calm Sally, and I'm like, okay, Sally, where'd you go? Oh God, where'd you go? And sometimes I'll just think about that in my head. And as soon as I start laughing, whew, for my son, sometimes he needs a moment of distraction.
Right.
I have noticed that. Like sometimes he's really upset. And like even this morning, he was upset because initially he didn't want to go with grandma to the farm. Even though I knew he loved the farm, he just wanted to laze around and watch TV. And not laze. I mean, just he wanted to sit like a lump on a rug and watch TV. And I was like, okay. And here's what happens with our TV after a time of it being paused. We have pictures that will start to scroll up. So a picture came up from when he was 2 years old, and I could see he did his own disengagement from the moment
Mhm.
by distracting himself and saying, "Oh, wait, that says that was in 2019. How old was I then, mommy?" And I was like, "Oh, you were two then." And he's like, "Oh, so what was I doing there? Oh, we were pumpkin picking." And
Right.
then he did it himself. He needed his distraction tool. So sometimes we need that tool. It's really about learning all the different tools and then figuring out which one you need in that moment.
Right.
Sometimes you need a couple. Sometimes you need breathing. The
Right.
breathing's not working. I will be right back. You need to walk away for a moment. Okay, the walking away didn't work. I need a laugh moment. Okay. Sally, where are you? Why are you hiding on the roof? Why are you on the roof? What are you doing up there? Sometimes you need a distraction. Oh, look at that. I think the cat is back on our back porch. Like you need all to figure out which of those tools in your toolbox you need to investigate
Right.
to re-engage. And that time span, I promise you, like the boiling pot starts to simmer down for
Mhm.
everybody. It simmers down for your kid, it simmers down for you. And you'll start to notice pattern wise that it starts to work regularly. However, this is very important, very important. There will be times when everything gets bad again. Okay. So let's say you finally got into a place where your kids are no longer using devices to need to eat a meal and
Yeah.
they're eating their meals joyfully and happily. And one day they come home from school and they're like, I need to watch my phone. I need to watch my tablet while I'm eating. I need that. I have to have it. Maybe they've had a stressful day. Maybe they've just had an off day. It's been a bad day. They did whatever, something happened that engaged them in bad thinking. We all get there, right? It does not mean pull that device out. It doesn't mean that. It means saying, "Ooh, I see you had a rough day, huh?" Re-engaging that, going back to the beginning. You had a rough day. Do you want to talk about it? No, I don't want to talk about it. Okay. Do you need a moment to yourself? No, I don't need a moment. I just need my device. Okay. Well, you and I both know that's not going to happen. So what else could we look at? What else could we do? Do you need some time to go read? Do you need some time in a calm, quiet place? You know the thing about timeouts?
Yeah.
You know how people always talk about timeouts? Do you know what timeouts really are geared for?
A break.
Time, a break. Yeah, time to disconnect. So one of the things we created in our house is a break corner,
Oh.
and Connor and we have a beanbag there, and we have like books, and we have like squeezy. We have an angry pillow with a really it's a red pillow with a really angry face on it, and it's just like, do you need time in your break corner? Do you need a lot of times that's just what we all need, right? We need time to go, like, I just need to disconnect from everything. I need to go to my room for a little bit. One of the things I'm going to tell you though is do not put devices in your room, in your kids' room.
Yeah.
Shouldn't have devices in your kids' room. You shouldn't have devices in your room. We have a TV that sits in our room that's basically become a clothing rack because we just don't. So I think like that's one of the most important things. Your room can be your sanctuary, and your room should be your child's sanctuary. So they need a little bit of time with their comfort place, and maybe listen to music for a little while, and as they get older, they're going to find various things. But the best thing you can do as a parent is investigate in all of the different things that work well for them.
True.
And those things will constantly be changing. Just like I said before, sometimes the breathing doesn't work. Sometimes the laughter doesn't work. Sometimes, you need to know what works for you in the moment, and those things will always be changing. So always be investigating different tools
Right.
to have them in your arsenal of tools. I think I just need a piece of candy, It's like, okay, that's fine.
True.
Right? Again, even food can be a tool. I think I just need a sweet drink. I need a cup of tea. I need a this, I need a that, whatever it may be. If you can investigate as many as possible with your kids and for yourself, you have an arsenal. Just reach for it.
Yeah.
That's what's important. You have a wealth of tools there. You just need to be able to reach for it. That's all you need to do.
Yeah, I think that is something very important. You should mention that. How do you see what I learned from our discussion is it's basically how do you keep yourself calm first before addressing your kid. And the second other thing which I learned is you have to have empathy towards your kids. You can't just suppress their emotions. You can't just yell at them. You have to first calm yourself and then talk to them, address, accept their emotions, right? And then make sure that they understand that we have to disconnect and then slowly get into that zone. If they really want it, yes, they really need it. But then again, how a parent can manage a situation where there could be a situation where we are losing our patience, but we have to call ourselves, you know, like the calmness back to our mind, accept,
Mhm.
acknowledge, and then again, try again with the kid that how you're going to
Yeah.
make sure that you address that situation there and there itself, right?
Yes, exactly. But you can't do that when everybody's angry and upset.
True.
Because here's the thing, think about it like this. When you're angry about a situation and you're with another adult and you're really angry, and that other adult says, "You can't feel that way." Would another adult ever tell you, "Stop it, stop being angry"? Would another adult, if you're crying about something, would another adult ever say, "You got to stop crying? What are you doing? Why are you crying?" If you're like just really frustrated, would somebody else tell you, "You have to stop being frustrated"? No. Children are not separate from adults. We all came from childhood, right? We all were born into this world. And that means that person is still with us. We have to acknowledge that our children are who we once were. And the best thing you want when you're feeling a particular way is for somebody else to acknowledge it for you. Oh, wow. I see you're really angry. Like if you're working your job and your boss says, like, "You're not allowed to feel that way about this. You just have to do it." Uh, Nobody wants a boss like that. Nobody wants a boss that way. So we have to be able to look at it from if we were in their position, what would we need in that moment? If
Yeah.
I'm really upset, I'm really hurting, and we have to remember something too. When they're crying about something or they're screaming about something, for them, it's the same feeling in their body as, let's say, you got into a car accident
Mhm.
or you just got a phone call that your loved one was rushed to the hospital. You know that moment where you're overwhelmed with that feeling of like fear, panic, anger, frustration. They're feeling that way. Now you may think it's not a big deal, it's just a phone. But feelings are feelings. It's not about the circumstances, it's about the feelings. And I'm not saying that we have to give in to them. What I'm saying, and a lot of people this is what true gentle parenting is.
Yeah.
What a lot of people, it's gentle parenting is not giving in to their child's every whim. Gentle parenting or conscious parenting, some people will call it balanced parenting. I like to call it the healthy signals of parenting. Healthy signals are showing your child that you can find your calm
Right.
so they can find their calm too.
True.
You are signaling to them, "Oh," and when you verbalize and say, "I am really frustrated oh, in this moment. I am really angry that you're yelling at me. I'm feeling really hurt that you're yelling at me. I don't know what to do. I need to take a moment to breathe. I need to take a moment to walk away."
Mhm.
When you do that, you show them the healthier way you're literally modeling what they need to do for themselves.
True. True.
And that is for them, because again, feelings and thoughts aren't wrong or good, bad or good. They are what they are and they live in us, period.
Right.
But how we behave with them, so the external ways in which we manage those emotions, need to be present and shown to our children and verbalized with them.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think these are really, really helpful information which we shared today. And I think really want to thank you today for joining this podcast. And I think
Yeah,
if I get more questions, I'm gonna, send it to you because, uh,
absolutely.
yeah, because there are so many questions I'm actually, thinking about, and I'm also gonna reach out to people I have connection with, right? And I've seen my experiences, I've seen many people doing the same thing, which I've expressed my concern, right? So maybe I will go back and tell them that this is what we have discussed. Maybe I'll share this video with them to see and understand how they can, be into a gentle parenting mode, and what exactly they need to be as a parent, and how do you manage a situation. So I really, really thank you for
Yeah,
joining me all today. And then I think this was really great discussions, and
yeah,
I would maybe we can connect later and as well, and maybe we'll
sure.
have more discussion. But I think
Absolutely.
this was a really, really good discussion today, and I really thank you for joining today.
Absolutely. My pleasure. My pleasure always. And any parents who need to just get on the road of starting to think about these things are more than welcome to reach out to me, because it's not easy to do it on your own. And that's, like I said, go back to coaching. It's great when you have a coach who can both encourage you and hear out how you're feeling about it. Oh my God, I cannot handle this change in my kid, and all of these things. Because the one thing that is absolutely true is that it is an evolution. It
Right.
is an evolutionary process in parenting. Just when you think you've got it handled, a new thing will emerge. And you're like, oh my gosh, now how do I do this?
True, I know what you're talking about, but I think, yeah.
Yeah,
Any questions? If I have, I'll direct it to you, and then maybe,
beautiful.
yeah. I think
Yeah,
I'll connect with you outside. I mean, offline, and maybe we'll have more discussion on this. So thank you for
absolutely.
joining today, and it was lovely
Thank
talking to you.
you.
You have a
It
great,
was wonderful being here. Thank you so much, and be well.
a great day. Bye bye. Take care.
Bye.